Boss Oogie, give me back. Yep, yeah, brother. What else will I need? Yes. Both of the questions stay up on the screen long enough for me to catch them. I'm not sure if that's... Yeah, they stay up there. I'm also doing a time lapse of this. I won't need this. What else do I need? It's M5. Should be M5. Lot of this is M5. Nope, not M5. M6, maybe, or it might be standard. M6. So this is going to be interesting. Most people have never seen this done. As I go and make a fool of myself. Actually, this one goes on this side. So you can see I have quite a few parts here. There's more here, and I have a brand new assembly that this is going to be built through. This one is for Billy. So Billy, if you happen to be in here, this one be yours, sir. You know what? I'm gonna lube that O-ring. That felt a little tight going in there. Don't like the way that felt. So just be certain that there's no issues. No possibility of butting the O-ring or something in here. Just a little tiny bit. So this way the O-ring sits perfectly. Pretty critical to seating the O-rings. So it's going to take a while. This is not going to be something that's going to happen in a few minutes. As I go and just... I didn't look at it when I picked it back up. It's got to go the other way. That's hilarious. Oh, man. It's got to go the other side. There we go. Because otherwise, I can't put the Venturi on the correct side if I don't put it on that side. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely going to have some work cut out here. This is the ORB fitting. And we can see that's quite huge compared to the itty-bitty little line. I can literally shove the line that feeds up front inside of here. So, and the same thing goes for the inside of the port of the ORB. I'm not the ORB, the 6IN connection that will go on here. Everything is increased in size here. Every bit of it's increased in size. I'm sure a lot of people are curious how this gets built. So, one of the nice things is that allowed for me was having the actual ability to have a swivel. This is only swiveling because I haven't tightened it yet, because I need to line it up before I tighten it. Oh, I need an O-ring. These O-rings. Now, it's pretty interesting because people think the color of the O-ring defines the material. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends. Not always does the color of the O-ring define the material that it is made of. So sometimes you can just add dyes to the materials anyway. Where's the arrow? Make sure she'd be pointing the right way on the filter. Nice sneaky little piece, man. This thing was a huge integration into doing this, and it's serviceable. And this is definitely a squeeze. It's more compact than the original one. Definitely more compact. I'll have to adjust the angle of this later, and I will have to adjust the angle of the regulator assembly later. Nope, not quite there. What's up? What's up? Toxic Conic 46456. What does that stand for? What does that mean? What does the screen name mean? Usually we all have a meaning for screen name unless it's our name. I don't even know what. It's like, I don't know, I just put anything in there. Hey man, whatever works for you. So one of the nice things that the new system has is I don't have an additional fitting here for the Venturi. So the fuel comes in, goes here, and comes up. The regulations here, and now since the Venturi is put on the back side and not up here, your fuel going forward has less fuel loss through Venturi, which is nice. It's a nice little upgrade to the system. Definitely increases the fuel capacity of the system while still maintaining plenty of actual flow to the front. This is a 5-bar regulator. You know what's funny is, I should show this, and this is always, it always amuses me. The size of the factory regulator, it's so small, and it just doesn't do the job. I'll try not to break the clip because I sell the other half of these as a replacement filter. This clip is really tough, and I like to sell it with the regulator attached on the replacement ones so that people can just buy a replacement because they're going up in price, unfortunately. There we go. Oy. Man, these suckers are in there. Basically, the regulators on the bottom of the factory one is so small, man. And it's easy to understand why just putting a DW in it makes it overshoot. Because the hole, it actually flows out through the top part here to dump back into the basket. It has to go through this itty-bitty little thing. Oh, WD-40 ain't gonna work when it's already stuffed inside of there. So unfortunately, that doesn't work well. It's already lubricated on the inside of here. It just, the O-rings from being in there for a while are just really tough, as you can tell when I snapped it back in. I'll bet that doesn't stay on the kit. What's up, man? I gotta send me your, hey, Gokum, send me your log again, man, if you haven't already done that today, because I couldn't find it in my emails. So hopefully everything's sorted out. So this is just a snap ring to hold this once this is in here. The only way it will go in and lock in is if the regulator's in its correct position. And once this is in here, it does not come out. You know what? Let me grab larger snap ring. Yep, she's in there. See, there's no, it does not move. Yeah, you have to use a 5-bar regulator. And the reason you have to use a 5-bar regulator is the factory system is a 5-bar regulator. So the ECU cannot see the low pressure side because it has no low pressure side sensor in the FK8 or the DE5 or the FL5. So it just thinks I've got 72 pounds of pressure, which is part of the problem with the factory regulator. Is when you put a DW in it, it's at like 80-something PSI at idle. So it kind of messes with the fuel pump controls because that pump has to be fed by the pump in the back. So, and when it's fed more pressure, it messes with the PID and the duty cycle, which is why if you have fuel pressure control problems, it can stem from poor tank to front control, meaning like you're not getting the right pressure up front. In Motec, you can add a pressure sensor, which I've done. It's different. That definitely changes the whole scenario when you add a pressure sensor. But you can't do that with the factory stuff. Another thing people seem to be doing, I don't understand why, is, well, I do understand why, but it doesn't solve the problem. Let me put it this way. They go and they put an extra filter up front. Here's the problem. If you have a filter in the back and then a filter in the front, that means you're getting less fuel up front. You cannot make up for that loss. So here's what I'm doing here. Although it's not really necessary, it's just an extra step. I'm capping off the actual regulator from the reference of anything on the outside, meaning any sort of pressure reading on the outside. The reason I'm doing this is because it's going to be in fuel, and it's not that it would hurt anything. It definitely would not hurt anything or bother anything. I just do it as like an extra reassurance, because the seals inside are this. It's the same seal on both sides, right? So rather than just in case, so you maybe the regulator spring doesn't like the material or whatever. Usually if they do go bad, they go bad the other direction. They go bad from the pressure underneath and then up. So now I need to keep this up and seal this off. It's actually a little too long. So once I seal this off, well, you can try use 6-bar regulator, but you're going to blow stuff up, and I don't think it exists in a standard regulator. And I don't think there is such a thing up front. There's no internal 6-bar that I know of. So you heat up the tube real good, and you seal her off. And that's what I mean by this be a tight fit. This new assembly is a super tight fit. All right. Now to add the initial Venturi. I've built so many of these, so I had all the parts set up. But you can see there's a crap load of little parts here. Adding more pressure up front does not fix the flow problem. You're still just going to flow the same amount of fuel, if not actually less. Higher pressure flows, yes, stresses the pump more, makes the pump run hotter. When the pump runs hotter, you're going to stress the system more. Another nice thing about this Venturi being back here, closer to the regulator, pressure control is better. That was another thing. It was improved pressure control. Before, I actually had a little bit too much going to the Venturi, which was good for track use, but it just wasn't as much as I wanted it to be. I did my testing on it, though. I had no problem getting up to like 700 on it, so that was a non-issue. Let's see, now I've got the check valve. So there's 2 check valves in a system, right? In this case, technically there is one inside of your fuel pump. So if you have a bad check valve, because the DW300C, a Walbro 450, and a Walbro 525 have an internal check valve. If you have this is the one downside to this. If you have a bad check valve in your pump, it will bleed the system down. But, you know, that is technically a maintenance end on somebody else's end, not on this end. So just keep that in mind. Like, you know, you really want to make sure you don't have a bad check valve on your end, on your pump, because they do have a reverse flow check valve. Let me see. We're at the 1/2 inch, and we're at 7/16. 11 is the same thing. Yes, 1/2 inch. 16. Okay. Forgot some of the tools to get it done. Gets a little bit. That's going to have to go around at least one more time. But before I do that, oi. Yep, this is never fun. to back that off and run it in again. Man, this side sometimes, guys, is a little bit tough to get where it needs to go. All right. I might have to still move that some more. There we go. So it's just it's not any particular topic. It's just hey, what's up, Freddie? I haven't heard from you in a long time. So we're just doing a 2nd gen build. That's all we're doing here, just a 2nd gen build. You know what I should do in the meantime, while I've got this here, before I forget, is check the regulator. Before I forget. And I did not put an O-ring on this. -6. Just a quick little. Not the best way to do it on this side, I don't think. No, that's not how I did it last time. Where is... What did I do last time when I did this? I did this... God, my brain is like... Bleh. What the heck did I do? My brain... I'm like, what the heck's going on in my brain? I can't figure out what the heck I did last time to get this done. Because this is bigger than this, and this isn't big enough to... What did I use? Oh, I know what I did. Oh. Completely forgot, but I had to use the O-ring. It was for an oil pan gasket. I forgot. I'm like, why isn't the O-ring sitting in there correctly? Shoot, is this 1/2 inch? No, it's 9/16. Forgot. I don't know why that 6AN plug is 9/16, but it is. Yeah, so Freddie, the Gen 2 moves the actual check valve to the back side, and this has, since the original Venturi was up here, right? You'd come up and then you'd lose some flow going forward because the Venturi was here. Now being on the back side at the regulator and having a check valve, it doesn't bleed back on oversitting, and it also puts more fuel forward, about 5% more fuel due to the way it's regulated now. So, all right. And just want to see that she... Oh, oh, yeah, you know what, help if I... Where am I seeping from my finger? Oh, I'm seeping from the actual... There we go. So in air, when you let off, it's going to read 40 because, one, it's air. 2, I don't want to keep beating on the regulator, but you just got to make sure it holds pressure just fine. The other reason is I can't get a true pressure reading with this because this, when you press it halfway, is a release. So you fill it, and then when you release this trigger is a halfway is a drain. So it makes it, I could run it at pressure, but I don't like doing that to the regulator because you can hear it's tapping against the inside of the housing. But being that it's holding 40 PSI after some of it gets drained afterwards, that lets you know that, like, that's more than your standard 4-bar. Because, where is... I'm trying to think... No, I don't have it. I don't have another way. I mean, the other way I could do it, which would be kind of crazy, Yeah, essentially it's a boost leak test for a regulator, in a sense, if you want to look at it that way, Gokum. But it definitely is. Let me see if I can get it to stop squealing as I'm doing it, so I can actually show 60 to 65 psi. Actually, the cool thing is, now I can show you the check valve holds. See? Check valve's only 16 psi. So you can see that holds. So that's the other check. Yeah, it won't let me do it. See, 55, and it lets some out, like, see? So, air doesn't go as high as liquid when it comes down to regulators, obviously, because air is a lot thinner, so it'll bleed out a lot faster. So if you were barely seeping any fuel forward, like barely any fuel, it might go down to that, but you'd have to be flowing such puny amounts of fuel. And every time I've tested these, that turns out to be just fine. That 10 psi will definitely come in with your flow up front. You have to remember that's barely open. So, and this is where the fuel comes out, because I had a customer ask, why was this open? So, another neat thing that I'm very happy about with this is this new Venturi connection is so strong on gripping this that I don't actually need a clamp on here, even though I include one. So, I mean, I've done it when I did it on mine, I didn't even use it when I did the revision of the 2nd gen. That's another thing. I always test my stuff on my car first. Well, like I said, all the assemblies get tested, man. They all get tested. So when somebody says something, it's like, well, it was tested before it left. So, and it showed that it held pressure before it left. So there's, like I was saying earlier, I don't know if you saw it, Sean, there's a check valve built into your low pressure pump. So, and if that valve in that low pressure pump is no bueno, yeah, it's going to bleed back. I don't think the pressure in that's more than 20 psi either. I never tried actually checking to see, like, what does it come out to? That would be an interesting check. Like, what does the pressure come out to in the check valve of, like, say, a DW300C? Another neat upgrade. This is cool. Normally, let me go get it. Let me get the original DW300C connection. Where is it? So, as we can see, there's 2 different sizes here. Well, the corrugated area is generally about the same size. The new tube is 8mm to connect the pump on one end and stays 10mm on the other side. This will help DW300C pick up some flow. We're not talking ginormous numbers, but we're talking increases. We're definitely talking increases. Don't want to get this but barely warm here. Oh, one click too far. So I actually discovered a while ago, when building these, there is, like, you heard it click, right, and lock in. I discovered a while ago, if you, on the first one I did, if you push them down too far, they won't seal as well. And that's only because these tubes are long. I forgot, I got so many darn little stinking tools I gotta grab to build these things. Every single one of these, even though I've done plenty, takes a long time. Like, it's a long pain. It's like, honestly, it's just a bit of a pain in the butt. I also figured out very early on certain size clamps work. You would think should work, don't. They create problems. Just double checking the seal on that hose. So you run an inline filter in your car. Yeah, but I don't have a pump like this, man. I have a huge Aeromotive 5 gallon per minute pump. It's like rated for like 1,600 horsepower on ethanol. So I don't have a choice. It just goes from the tank into a surge tank, and the surge tank goes to a gigantic 5 gallon per minute Aeromotive pump. So that's not exactly on the cheap side, so to speak. Otherwise, I would just run this. Well, I mean, you could run the inline up front too. I mean, I would have to remove the filter from here, the internal filter, and you can just run an inline up. So if you have an assembly, right, you have one of these, and you want to switch to an inline up front, so when you switch to that inline up front, you can, you can just, like I said, delete the little element in there, and it more than works just fine. There's no issues with that, as long as you use, like, don't use a check valve up front. That's another thing I should say. People are doing these external filters up front on top of there with a check valve up front. A check valve is spring loaded. It means you definitely have to overcome that spring. And I don't know if this makes any sense to everybody, but everybody thinks that the fuel coming out of here is going to be just magically never lose any efficiency going from the back of the car to the front of the car. But it's like if you just put a hose and fill it with water and put the other end of the hose on the top of a house and try to blow the water up the hose on top of the house, you're going to have restrictions. That's one of the problems with the factory assembly. It restricts a lot of the flow. Quite a bit, actually. All right, properly sealed. Should be sealed 100%. Kind of hard to do. I'm not running either of those pumps. I'm running an Aeromotive pump. Look it up. Aeromotive, variable speed, gear driven, 5 gallon per minute pump. Like the in-tank pump's a 450, and that only feeds the surge tank. Go. So I need that. And that. Everything else is not needed. Brand new DW. Put this off to the side. I always keep the float separate, just to be on the safe side. Make sure I don't do anything. Any oopsies. So I find it interesting that they now include in the DW kits a white spacer. And not two, they still include 2 O-rings, which I don't understand why. It's like this is just a generic packaging. I thought it was neat that they figured out after, I don't know, maybe they saw one of my videos of them saying for 2 years that, hey, you know. So, I don't like the fact they got this plastic on here. I don't like that. But is that part of the label? Yeah, unfortunately. Like if you take your pump out, right? You should be able to pull air through it, but you should not be able to blow air into it. So, interesting. I just noticed something. See that little hole? Makes me wonder. I know this is probably, judging from the look of this, I'm going to say that hole is probably the pressure relief. I'm going to say that's probably, you just making sure you're trying to get to achieve 800s. You're definitely going to need more than a Walbro 450 for that. Like, or, well, that's a lot. Like, oh, maybe not an E50. Maybe not an E50. Well, if you're having I have had almost no, I've had, on my end, when I've discovered, I have not yet to discover in my hands a DW that legitimately failed, unless it like sat in ethanol for like weeks. So I have yet to have one that failed. When pump volume becomes the issue, like not having enough volume with this kit, it usually 9 times out of 10 they've like not hooked up the Venturi right, or they've done something where they've pinched one of the lines, which is why I thought about discontinuing this, selling this just like this, because a lot of people seem to make a mistake, and I'm not sure what, because they don't ever want to send it back for me to check it out, you know, and figure out what's going on. So, but when I send them out, I don't have problems. So, I'm not sure what they're doing. Really not sure. See, I think I do like the fact they have little channels underneath here, so when it's smushed down here, you can get fuel. But I also have the same thing done with my Walbro setup. So this is, if we were to use a Walbro, this is what we'd be doing, and this is essentially my version of a seat spacer. And inside here, as you can see, you're not going to run into an issue where it's actually sitting down on the bottom. Not only that, this piece in here, this plastic garden here, has literally standoffs in it. So not only do you have the mesh keeping off the floor, you have additional standoffs in both the top plastic piece and the bottom plastic piece. So, and it's pretty crazy if you consider the size of this pump that I could fit this in here with this. And it fits. Oh, it fits. And trust me, before I updated the system, I checked to make sure. I was like, man, better make sure this thing, bad boy, fits correctly. Another thing I think a lot of people skip the step is they skip shrinking these. And you have to do that correctly. If you don't, what happens is it pulls out of it, and then you end up getting disconnected or just not enough fuel. Usually, the first sign is you start running out of fuel when you shouldn't. That's usually the first sign. See, I don't like this. Man, I don't like the way they have... Nope. That's not going to cut it for me. I don't like their connector. I normally never do it, but I should have never used theirs. just too loose. Pretty sure. Let me just double check on this end. See, why is theirs seem to be different than mine? God, I hate being short. Where is it? Where'd it go? I hate being short. Not fun being short. In Turkey, the fuel isn't the world's greatest as filtering. Yeah, that's fine. It really shouldn't be. I don't know what's different, but for some reason. It says 14 to 16, but. Yeah, see, my red ones in this bunch squeeze on here, and I'd rather use these because they'll fit nice and tight on the other end. So we need a total length of that. Oh, flying parts. Not a big deal. They use some pretty hefty wire on this stuff too. Very happy with the grade of wire they use on it. When I build harnesses, I gotta say though, that's another thing is I only use mil-spec wire when I build harnesses. I don't know if you guys know the difference. Mil-spec stands for military grade essentially. So that means it has to endure certain conditions is the best way to put it. A lot of people think this assembly just goes together nice and easy. There's a lot of little nuances that go on. If you can pull your crimps apart, it's never going to hold in the car, and you're not going to get good current. You need a crimp that has a pinch to it, like this has a pinch. So that has a pinch section to it. Let me go put this in the, well, I packaged up the original pump in plastic. I don't know where I put that thing. Whatever. This one goes on this side. Oh, flying parts again. I don't know, I'm just out of it today. It's Sunday. Really didn't want to be working on Sunday, but didn't have much of a choice. It is what it is. Now, by using technically a smaller size than suggested for the wire, you get a much tighter crimp. Just don't, make sure you don't push any of the wires out. Like, you know, smush them on the outside of the crimp. You know, this is for those guys learning how to crimp stuff yourself. Let me turn that on and put this back. I don't use a torch ever for this. It's just the heat is too much. By shrinking it correctly, it will never creep up or down on the wire. If you don't shrink it correctly, the sleeve, this piece, gets hard because you get the fuel on the inside and outside and slips down the wire. And also the other thing, I don't know if I can catch this on camera. Maybe I can. No, it's going to blur out. Maybe if I block that. No. So, if you can really see, there's a little bit of, it's actually a sealant. And that's kind of why I like grabbing my clips mostly. There's a sealant that's inside of here that I use that actually seals this completely shut. So, unlike what they provide for you, unfortunately, that is not the case. So, that's another thing that, one of the things, I'm just very particular about how I do things. Usually takes me about an hour or so to build one of these setups. Takes about 20 to 30 minutes of just compiling parts sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it's not too exciting, honestly, but you know what? I'm gonna make my life easier for now. Because this end, they made the end bigger. So she's a little tough to get on there. As I'm like melting this darn, let me do this. Oh, my hands are like on fire here. Ouch. Yeesh. Another tricky part. This is on here so tight at this point, I could tell you I really do not need this clamp on here. But, of course, I'm going to put it on there. Man, this is definitely a little hard to get the thread started back up again. This is the fun part. Don't you know? This is so easy to put together. Just make millions on it. So, honestly, actually, a Walbro assembly is a little bit easier to put together because you don't deal with this particular part. There we go. Oh, come on, baby. Get ready to use a bigger clamp on it. There we go. Actually, nope. There we go. Okay. Makes me wonder if I can put a 10 mil clamp on there. Alright, now, before I tighten this, there's a couple things that I do that's important that a lot of people seem to be kind of missing. For one, obviously, what direction you put it in there is important. I can rotate the pump if I need to where it's best sits in there easily. Now, one of the things I've seen a few times that needs to be addressed when you're done. Well, let me get this through here first. I should have clipped this, but I don't like wasting materials because, well, that comes up to cost in the long run. Lots of cost. Okay, when it's done, a lot of people don't realize that slot right here, okay, this hose goes right in that slot. That's the only way you get full compression. If you've got this hose like smashed over here, for those installing it themselves, and I usually preset this angle too. So, but if they twist this, there's like nothing I can do for the individuals who twist this. And they can damage this. I've seen it damaged during install. So that was another reason I thought about, like, well, maybe I should just not allow this to be purchased in that fashion where they can install it themselves. Okay, now, okay, pressure on both sides, just triple checking, not that I need to. Now, there we go. Where is my razor blade? I lost my razor blade. There it is. Well, there's that one. I had another one. Time to set the Venturi length. Make sure that that compresses, and that's right there. And there's my mark. I'll just double check. Okay, clear of that end right there. Now the tricky part. Now when I send these out, one of the things I do, that's not a perfectly even cut, is it? No, it's not perfect. I still have some room to go. So I need... There we go. So I'll usually pre-start some of this. Radium 6 micron is total overkill. It's still not a perfectly straight cut. I'm literally taking off smidgens here. I gotta just literally just take off a clean flat. And I'll usually pre-expand this before it goes out. Meaning, I'll start it so they don't have to deal with it. Still can't get that perfectly. That's going to be fine though. Why I'm getting too particular now. I do this in 2 steps. Do the initial opening. And this one might actually just be the right temperature. There. Once it's on, man, if you do it right, it ain't coming off. I mean, it really ain't coming off. And then you add the clamp to it. If it comes off, you did something wrong. Okay, now I gotta turn this. She is not the way I want it. Let me see something here. Okay, I'm gonna have to. Yep. All right. Yeah, that's about where. Yeah. Gotta remember, guys, look at all the parts I have for this just to put it together before it goes in. I mean, there's a lot of parts involved, man. A lot of little parts, and it's a royal pain in the butt. So, what do I need to do to turn that? I don't like that's not sitting the way I want. Okay. Okay. Working. Yeah, no. Okay. No, you're fighting me. Where do I have to, where's the adjustment? Do I need to turn the pump around? I think I need to turn the pump around. Always freaking pain in the butt. There it is. All right. Since you wanted to be an annoying bugger. I needed to turn the pump around because I needed clearance between here and here. Between this right here on this post, on this spring. You need to have clearance there. This can't sit against there. It's tight, but it cannot sit against there when it's compressed. Otherwise, the vibration can cause it to rub through over time. It doesn't sit fully down that far. It doesn't sit compressed all the way down like this in the tank. It sits more like this. But they always leave you room. So, this is one of the things that I always make sure that I get real particular about when it goes out and make sure there's some clearance there. Like I said, it's tight, but it works. And the other thing is, you can, if you wanted to, you could technically just zip tie these two lines together to keep it away, but don't ever zip tie the line from here to here. That is a terrible idea. That is going to get you into trouble. If you zip tie that line to the steel, it's just going to wear through over time. And that's one heck of a headache you don't want to deal with, because then you've got to figure out, hey, you know, maybe I got, like, you don't know what's causing the issue, right? Okay, and then the only other thing I loosened was that. And this is ORB, so that's going to seal. And lastly, one last check. There's the air chuck. Where did I set that stuff down? Oh, there's one end. There's the other. Now, at this point, I can't check full pressure, but I could just check the check valve itself. But we already know the regulator's good. Come on, turn on. Is that the pump? That's what I mean. Like, you can't take account for pump behavior on some pumps. I hear a noise, and I'll bet you it's from the pump itself. It's brand new in the box, too, so can't really be... There you go. That's how you find dumb issues that you didn't know would be there. So, like I said, they always get tested before they go out, and I just need to reposition this hose. I mean, the worst case scenario, I'll have to replace the one long hose on here. Put this all the way down the bottom, then lock this in. This can be a pain in the ass, but it prevents long-term issues. We're going to stop at 16. Yep. Well, in this case, it says 15 and a half, 15.2, but literally something as silly as that. Just the position of a hose, which is why I really suggest that, you know, somebody who's got good experience put these together, because that right there, while it wouldn't cause, it's so small, it would not cause like power loss levels of fuel, right? Because it was so tiny, but it would cause irritation. And then you know, like people will get irritated about it, you know, because like, oh, it's bleeding back, or like when it sits overnight, and you know, man, how did I get that sucker in there? This is definitely a squeeze. I made that hose a hair taller now. All right. And then the last thing to do I have it here? Batteries here for that. Dang it. Put my drill inside. Give me 1 minute. How many of these assemblies have I completed? God, I don't even know. It's like it's up there in product popularity, and I've sold a lot of injectors over the years and stuff, and this is definitely up there, like way up there. Do I have a smaller one of these? I do. So what I did there was I make a little tiny hole up here just to make sure that we don't lose this Venturi connection. We don't want this getting stuck against the float. So in order to just make sure that we prevent that problem, I just put it there, and this way she can never come undone no matter what. So that solves that problem. That's in the right spot. That's in the right spot. That's clear. Now, I'm going to, just to be on the safe side, loosely perfect. That makes sure that when it's compressed is not in the way. Prices are on the site. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but they had to go up because my cost per basket went up. Ever since the release of the Integra Type S, they have literally jacked the prices up on everything dealing with the Type R. Anything K20C1, the prices have now gone up. And it sucks because they did that to everything, unfortunately. And there ain't nothing you can do about it. Not a darn thing you can do about it, unfortunately. Car's good, man. Car's great. With the new charge pipe and everything, it's freaking a 25. Oh, the cat. Oh, you said cat. No, that thing's gone. It's gone. And to be honest with you guys, like, I'm kind of grateful it's gone, because I don't need another pet in my house or anything like that. Like, I just don't need... I don't need that headache, honestly. Like, I love my dog, but I don't need a cat. I don't want a litter box in the house. Plus, honestly, I'm, like, somewhat allergic to them, so that's another thing. My sinuses get plugged up from when they're around. If there's enough dander floating around and it gets in the furniture and destroy the leather, it just, yeah. Yeah, no more cat for me in this area. No, thank you. Make sure these wires are just a little bit more length here. There we go. Got to make sure these wires, when they're going up to the top here, that they're not taut, like overly tight, because when you compress it, the wires move. You want to make sure there's still some room for them to move when you do it. And lastly, you just take this and just tuck that in there for your float. And then finally, you have a fully assembled assembly with a DW300C, and this be Billy's. So, Billy, here's your full fuel assembly. Basically, in terms, this took an hour and a half to assemble. I always ship them back out in the same box that they came in. So, yeah, man, enjoy the assembly. The biggest pain in the butt is, when you got to take it out, that filter's got to be assembled, like, yeah, honestly, like 40, 50,000 miles, which by then most guys have upgraded something, you know, moved on to something else at that point, something crazier, or maybe a bigger fuel pump. And at that point, most guys at that point will go to further to a to a different level. Now, why did this thing? That's pretty funny. My Insta360, I was doing a time lapse, and she just shut off right at the end when I said, "Congrats, Billy. Battery low." Oh, okay. So the time lapse literally just made it through. That's pretty funny that I did a time lapse at the same time. So, yeah, you guys can see there's quite a bit that's involved. And I think maybe now that some people have seen this done live, to understand why I really highly suggest that a professional install this and not your typical DIY. Because we can see, like, now that I've got it in here, wires tucked nice, neat, you know, everything's clean in here. And I've seen some pictures of some stuff sent back to me after somebody does an install, and they're like, "Oh, I got everything perfect," and I look at it and go, "Ouch!" Like, no, guys, like, it's not perfect. This is ideal. Right here is ideal. Compressing here fits right in the slot. There is, let me see if I get the camera angle. There is room between everything here, even during compress. It's tight, but there is room, and that is ideal. And being able to check afterwards, you know, you really can't do that if you're assembling it yourself. And you might, you know, accidentally, you know, maybe you heat this up too much on the Venturi and it pops off while it's in the tank. You know, that's why I thought to myself, I said, well, maybe I know it's more expensive to do it that way. Yeah, it works on every car. This works on every car, because the biggest thing all the computer cares about and wants and expects is 72 pounds of fuel pressure going to the front. That's all it cares about. So this works on any car. Doesn't matter if it's stock fuel system, upgraded fuel system. I have found, due to the better consistency of fuel going to the front, even gains on stock fuel system cars. I did a first generation kit on a car, and it made the highest dynojet number I've ever seen on stock turbo, on stock fuel system, and that was 430. And I thought that was really kind of crazy, just sit there and see that. And he had just all stock fuel system, stock, but it was ethanol, it was E30, and it was 91 in E30, so it's not like we had like some race fuel mixed in there or something like that. And it made a lot of power, and I was very impressed by that. And this itty-bitty puny regulator just doesn't cut it, right? I'll show you guys what I do with these, so that these can be used, because you're like, oh, well, it can't be used now, right? Well, is this one? No, that one's not. There's one. That puny 8mm line becomes now a 10mm line, and it gets run on the outside back here, because the factory actually goes back here. And instead of having, again, I include the clamp, but it's a little bit more difficult to install than a standard filter. But we can see, and it's a little bit of a squeeze on this. This wants to push out, but once it's in, it's in. This is pretty neat. This is basically a stock one, that instead of letting these go to waste, and so many times these are out of stock, this is basically the factory replacement filter. And you can put a pump in here, because this is what goes bad the most. And it comes with the new regulator and everything else, so you don't have to swap that over. And basically, this is what you would do. You would put this into place and heat the Venturi, and then connect your own hose. Let me go grab one. you know, this is what I do, is I modify these so they can be sold and used. So basically, I mean, it's really simple. You just got to get the heating of the parts right. Which way does this face? My brain is like doing a DTD right now. And then this, from the factory, goes like this. They normally go on the outside, the feeds on the outside. And then you would run down to your Venturi, down here, and then put your clamp on, and your Venturi hose still functions. And you do it that way for those. You know, rather, like, if they're not in stock or something, I keep these around. So, and again, it uses a 10 millimeter feed hose instead of an 8. You know, besides the fact that I couldn't find it in an 8 millimeter anyway. 8 to 10 with a 10 millimeter connection on each side. So, that was just a way to just kind of not let things go to waste with people the stuff they need, right? I don't really make any labor putting these together either. So, there's not really a lot, like, there's not a lot of money made in that, you know? Anyway, that pretty much is it. You know, I just got to clean up the mess I made, you know, and put everything away at this point. So if you guys got any questions before I sign out, you know. So, but that's pretty much it. That's how one is put together. And all the little particulars you got to pay attention to. Generally, I think the assembly is about 7. How long does it take to get one? I always do per build, and it's always listed as 2 to 4 weeks, but it's not always that long. The reason that I do that is because there's so many little parts that sometimes I run into a situation where I can't get a part. That's the biggest problem, right? Like sometimes, like I ran into a situation where I have a little custom, well, I didn't say it's custom-ish. One of the fittings to make this work is a stainless steel piece that I have a very difficult time getting, and to make sure that I don't run into that problem again, because it put me back many weeks, I ordered quite a few. So this wonderful custom stainless piece right here, this stupid thing of all things was one of the more difficult parts to find. It just turns out to be that way, that sometimes certain things are more difficult to find. You'd be surprised some of the things that are a pain. I mean, hose clamps are pretty easy to find. Few tubes are pretty easy to find. So, I'm working on it, Gokum. I'm working on it, buddy. So, as soon as I get done with this, I gotta set up and start on the cylinder head. Then after that, I'll take a peek, man. But just give me a little bit of time. Just you sent me, as long as you sent me that email again, right? So, because like I said, I don't have a look. I did not see the other one. Let me make sure I got it before you get offline here. Let me do that first. You know what? I'll just look at it now. Let's see what's going on, buddy. Let's see if the problem is fixed or if you still have a leak. Let's see. Why does that look so weird? I guess, oh God, you know what? I just realized something. because I'm looking at a curved screen. No, not yours, dude. Yours is still in the car, remember? Oh, I told you, I got another brand new one that's got to get done. We're waiting for parts on your car. Charge pipes in relation to the kitty? No. Charge pipes in relation to a boost leak. Let me just double check here, buddy. Let's see what's going on first. Let me get logged in. If my Outlook would stop being stupid. Oh, come on. This is what I mean. This is what aggravates the snot out of me. I'm trying to log into my damn email, and it keeps logging me in. I don't care. I don't need storage on that one. Sign out. Oh, my God. There we go. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Cancel that. Downloads. Oh, I don't have my darn... Man, I don't have my correct templates on this one. There we go. Close. No, this still don't look right. Let me see something here. Well, it did spin. Let me see the throttle plate close. No, it did not. But it shouldn't. No, this shouldn't be like this, buddy. I don't know. You gotta, maybe you gotta do fourth gear and see. I don't know, because this doesn't look, the one spot I have here. No, man. It's, wait, what is going on here? What gear are you in, man? You gotta do this stuff in third or fourth gear. If it's doing spinning like crazy in fourth, what gear are you trying to do this in? Hold on a second. Let me see something here. What gear are you in? Vehicle gear. Yeah, you gotta go to like fourth gear, because this is spinning way too hard to really see good fuel control. Let me look at the trims real quick. Closed loop trims, long terms. No, I don't like that. New value. Hold on a second. Sensors, let me go short term. I don't like the behavior still. I just want to clarify. No, it's... No, so as soon as you hit around 25, 26 pounds, it immediately wants to go lean, then flood it, and the trims go nuts. And then the boost, it's like the boost spikes and then comes back down. Try fourth gear. Try fourth gear. And see what it does there. And I don't think this is just from spinning. Because this is still very erratic, even from a spin state. And it's like as soon as you get the high RPM, it starts to like almost choke instantly. As soon as you get to like 6,000, which I don't know, man. We're going to have to talk. Are you available to talk? Because it'd be a lot easier to just kind of talk about your setup here rather than as far as what I'm seeing going on here. Let me double check your file, but no, that's FPDL. Is that the file? There. I'm gonna double check your file, but I don't think. Is there any damage from shipping? See what now? Oh yeah, dude, I don't think there'll be any damage from shipping. I doubt it, dude. Mounts are pretty hard to damage while shipping. Sensors, AFM scale. Scale is clean. Boost control is flat. Let me see something. Throttle. Nope. That's a steady torque setting across the board. Cam shift is good. Nope, that's everything is where it's supposed to be. So, what exhaust do you have? I don't remember which exhaust you told me you had. But I don't think that's part of it. This doesn't look like that. This is very odd and strange behavior, even for a car that's spinning. The fact that I start to see a plus trim. Do me a favor. On Instagram, send me a picture of your intake setup. Yeah, send me a picture of your intake setup. Because it goes to a negative trim. It starts to look pretty much okay until you get to like 26 pounds of boost. And then this thing just goes nuts. So, I'm not sure. You could. Yeah, but I just don't like the fact that the wastegate starts to close rapidly above 5,800. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's almost like he's got a coupler that's on the edge, and when it gets to a certain point, it starts to bleed off. Because, I don't know if I can zoom. I can't really zoom that in. But you can see, in the wastegate position, it looks fine, and then the RPM comes up, and then it's just like, and it's like, the wastegate's like, yeah, nope, no more. It's like he hits a certain boost pressure, and then that's it. And then whatever's leaking or not holding pressure just says, I've had enough. And it won't make any more boost. I'm not sure. Like, because I'm not there, right? So I can't turn around and go over the car, right? I mean, we could be talking about, a clamp on a coupler is not quite right. It could have a torn coupler. It could be a cracked intake manifold. You could have a bad O-ring on a manifold. It could be, you could have, well, it still doesn't explain the wastegate going slam shut, right? Like it's starting to slam shut at high RPM. That usually indicates, it could be a lot of things when it comes down to that. You could, like I said, a split manifold. Like you can literally, I seen one recently, was split right here, and when you hit a certain boost pressure, it goes and spreads out. So an O-ring in here, not right. I've seen people literally forget to tighten the throttle body bolts. It could be, now something like this looks like, and the fact that, let me see, where did you punch it? You punched it at like, okay, well, you started really late in the RPM. Really need to start much earlier in the RPM. We're definitely starting way too late. Like, you've got to start down low at 2,500. That's going to let me know, because you're sitting there like barely touching it, and then bam. You need to start at 2,500, and the reason that we start down there, and this is not to say you're like, you know, it's just that we start down there so that we know, we see the threshold, it's called. And that's where the turbo comes into full boost, and that's not lag, it's just threshold, the minimum RPM point of full boost. And you start at 2,500, you just mash the throttle, and I can see on the wastegate position, do we have a constant leak state where you have a leak where you've got a gasket that's completely blown out somewhere and it just gets wonky at a certain amount of volume? Or I can see, okay, you have something that's leaking at 20 pounds of pressure. If you do, you absolutely need something like this, and you need to connect it to the inlet on the anti-surge, connect it there, and try to pressurize the system. This way, you can make sure that you don't have a leak somewhere. Smoke machines, that stuff don't work. That's literally, that is not going to function the way you want it to. And, you know, you're going to need different sizes depending on what you're doing. So, you can get these a lot of places. But this is what you're going to need, with a way to pressurize it. And you're going to need to, it's going to seem like it's going to be a lot of pressure, but in order to find a leak that starts at like 2,500 in fourth gear, in order to find a leak that is only leaking at above 20 pounds, you've got to put 25, 26 pounds of pressure in it. Now, if you have the RV6 anti-surge and you have the carbon fiber inlet, do not try to put 26 pounds through that carbon fiber inlet. Remove the carbon fiber piece and put it on the hard aluminum part and pressurize it there. So, and you're going to need to clamp off. There's one line on the charge pipe that goes to that little Venturi that goes on the charge pipe. You'll immediately know which one you got to clamp off. And then you can check the system. So, I mean, I've seen, this looks like, I said, it looks like something where I don't think it's the bypass valve, because if the bypass valve pops open, you don't have as much of an issue with the bypass valve pops open, because fuel stays good because you're just recirculating it in the housing. So I don't see that unless there's an issue with the bypass valve leaking, but it shouldn't be since they installed it. And as RPM climbs, this shouldn't happen in this case. You shouldn't be losing wastegate position on only 23 pounds. You should definitely be a nice flat over on a 25-pound command. You should have like 3.5 millimeter position. So it's you're definitely it's got to be, so somewhere it's got to be a significant leak still. even in this third gear run that I'm seeing, there's definitely a leak somewhere in here, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's also going to make it really difficult to control fuel, ignition timing, and everything else. Because when you have a leak, it changes the air charge numbers. So, anyway, just in case, send me a picture of the inlet. Not that I think that that's the issue, like the actual type of inlet housing. Because your trims are literally going from negative to positive, which is backwards. It should actually, if it's good and sealed, what will happen is, on a stock motor, you'll come up and you'll end up, when I say stock head, stock cam, I should say, it'll come up and then it'll go a little bit negative in the fuel trims. Actually, Billy, you're late to the party, but this is yours. There you go, buddy. So, I'm actually about to shut down the live. I was just going over a log of customers. So, that's so weird that the short-term trim goes lower down low and then positive up high. Almost makes me wonder if that O-ring is messed up. Because there's an O-ring that goes on that inlet. You'll find out real soon, but that still doesn't explain the wastegate position. That definitely does not explain the wastegate position. Well, so yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was the PRL inlet, though, where the inlet leaked. I've seen people already crack that carbon fiber one. They've already cracked it before. I've seen that. So, yeah, that happens, unfortunately. And it pulls air in around before the mass airflow sensor, which might explain, I think you might have a twofold problem here. I think we have a boost leak, which explains the wastegate position, and the need for a positive trim at high RPM tells me that there's probably also a leak somewhere between the turbo and the intake air box. So, yep. But anyway, guys, I'm going to call it because I got to get started on this cylinder head here. That customer of mine, Mr. Tim, I need to get started on this awesome piece of machinery here. Billy, please just kind of give me until Tuesday to get your assembly out. I'd like to drop that off directly at the post office, and I can't do that tomorrow. So, just hang tight. I got you covered. So, yay! Yeah, man. Look forward to it. So, I also, just to keep from scratching these up, although this is going to get decked anyway, resurfaced essentially. Just gonna cover the pores so it's just less trash to clean up later. And new out of the box, there was some little dings. I was kind of not happy about that. It looked like at the factory there was some, I want to see if I can catch this on camera. I'm not happy about it. I don't know if you guys can see. Maybe not. Oh, God. Probably not. Like right there. I don't know if you guys could have seen that or not, but there was some minor stuff. But it gets milled anyway. It's part of a, if you do a cylinder head and you do it with a rebuild, it's part of it. I just have it machined anyway. But you'd be surprised. Oh yeah, man. Just, my goal is to make sure that everyone can get to their goal, right? And that's the whole point, right? We want to make sure, and that we also, the other thing is realistic expectations, right? Like hearing stuff about Stockhead did this or Stockhead did that, that's cool. You know, that's cool. But I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I think I'm the only guy I know that makes 800 on, like, over 800 under 40 psi of boost. So, at least on this car. And just wait. And I'm not done yet. But anyway. Oh no, the Goku, the wastegate's not damaged. I don't think so, man. That's not going to cause fuel trim problems, man. If the wastegate was messed up, it would be all the time at all RPMs. So definitely, I don't think the wastegate is a problem. The only way that would be a problem is if you put it in upside down, where the loop on the arm is supposed to be facing up. And if you put it where our loop is facing down, like it looks like a U shape, I don't have one. But if you put that facing down, that's wrong. That needs to be facing up, but that still doesn't explain the fuel trims or the strange behavior of the fuel trims. So, all right, ladies and germs, I'll see y'all later. I gotta call it here.